Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. Welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we want to continue to shed a light on matters KCCA because it appears the Kampala Capital City Authority is back in the eye of the storm. And just yesterday, there was an executive decision to relieve of their duties 3 people, including the executive director KCCA, her deputy, and the director of public health. So where do we go from here? Kampala seems to be in a sort of state as we speak right now. The garbage crisis is increasing. The roads are not better. Maybe only one, we do not have security, street lights on our streets. It is in a sort of state, but it's our capital city. Why did we leave Kampala reach this level? My guest this evening, I have from the President's Office, Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Biaranga. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick, our listeners out there, and my colleague in the studio.
And that colleague in the studio, I call him Ntunga Muzbest, from the Great Lakes Institute.
Be careful.
That's very controversial, Patrick.
Is it?
That's very controversial.
Take it as a
I don't want to be thrown into controversy.
Take it as a harmless compliment.
Thank you.
From the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Godobert Mushave, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, colleagues, and good evening, our listeners.
We work in Kampala. Yeah. Most of us are residents of Kampala, and we've been in this city for quite some time. It's our city.
I doubt if you're a resident of Kampala,
I am.
Where do you come? Where do you stay?
I am a resident of Kampala.
Where do you stay?
In Kampala, in Rwanda.
In Rwanda. Okay.
You know, why I'm asking that, I'm raising that. Somebody who says in Naria thinks he's in Kampala.
I know.
But isn't that now the metropolitan?
Well, that has been metropolitan is in the name.
Conceptually, that we are now in Kampala.
In name, not in law.
Kampala metropolitan area.
You know when that debate came up and the Mengo vehemently opposed
the metropolitan,
and it never became a legal matter. I mean, it wasn't. No, it was not. It's not.
No, it is.
People talk of Greater Kampala. There's no metropolitan Kampala in law. At least to the best of my knowledge. Because it was listed by Mengo, you remember?
Oh,
yes. I see, for example, police uses it just maybe for administrative purposes.
Yeah, the people use it for administrative purposes, but there's no, you can't say boundary of Metropolitan Kampala is this.
Okay, okay. We are residents of Kampala. We work in Kampala. This is our city. What is your take on the recent developments in cases, the executive decision to relieve the 3 individuals of the duties they have been occupying?
There are no recent developments.
I mean, firing 3 people is a development.
No, that's not a development, Patrick. For me, Kampala, the crisis in Kampala as a capital city really is a representation of the overall crisis that this country faces. Because you see, there are institutions in this country. I've always talked about the dysfunction of institutions across the board, by the way. So the executive is dysfunctional. If you go into the details, I can tell you how the executive is dysfunctional. The parliament, the legislature is dysfunctional. If you've seen the crisis they have gone through, with the speaker being accused of privilege of taxpayers' money, the speaker being sanctioned by different people, and that's the speaker that you have. That's a dysfunctional institution. If you go to the judiciary and you look at the cases that stay in courts for like ages,
the backlog, and for almost 20 years they have been discussing and say we are clearing backlog, but it can never go. That's a dysfunction. Now, KCC is in the same category. If you look across the board, I've already said there are a few institutions that you can say that they are trying to perform. Probably URA being one of them. Yeah, Uganda Registration Services Bureau. Uganda Bureau of Statistics was one of those institutions that we always thought that was really above board, but the way they botched up this ended census, again they really diminished my confidence in the way they perform. So you can look at some of those institutions. So there are exceptions to the general rule, but the general rule is that we have an institutional dysfunction in this country. So KCC is exactly one of those dysfunctional institutions.
And for KCC, it's very difficult even to figure out what the problem is. Because if it was a political problem, there have been attempts to solve it. I think that's a total failure, because at this moment, Kampala city probably is the only city in the world that has 2 ministers as who are supposed to provide political oversight. You have a technical team of people appointed up to the level of the president being the appointing authority. So you ask yourself, but so what's the problem? You have a city that is totally run down. And I've always actually argued and said, if I was the president of Uganda and I'm running a budget of, even if it was 50 trillion, probably every year some 2 trillion would be just thrown at Kampala to make sure that this capital city is organized.
It's a working city.
It's a working city. People can move. The infrastructure is working. The waste is done. So I fail to understand Moses' government, how you run a country and you keep on telling people how you are making progress, and you have a capital city in the state of Kampala. Remember, just one last comment. Incidentally, Kampala we are just looking at it as the way because it's a capital city. But all the cities across this country, most of them are in the same state. In Ntungam, we have a small trading center which is called the municipality. But you can see the only road that goes to the highway to Kabare, and then the other road that goes to Miramahir. But just cross over from those main roads and go to the behind of these places and see the sewage. And you ask yourself, how do people live here? So we have a crisis, but people don't want to appreciate it.
Moses, because you raise very important issues, Godba, about the appointment of the people who are leading Kampala. You have the ED and the deputy appointed by the president. You have 2 ministers appointed by the president. These are 4 almost individuals with immense power, I suppose.
And I wish Moses could comment on why the ministers were also not fired, because they should also
Isn't this also an indication on the failure of the appointed individuals and the appointing authority?
Well, you see, if people are given responsibility, you have to exercise it. Maybe the question would be, well, that's the right person or not. Otherwise, if you are the executive director KCC, some of the things here in Uganda, I see Ugandans sometimes hide their weakness or incompetence in say there's no money, because the budgets or even some of the things are not publicized. Then you tend to take their word that, oh, there was no money. I remember on this radio, that time it was that show was being hosted by Kwezi. That the outgoing deputy ED, Engineer Uliyimbazi, mentioned that the government gave them got KCCA a loan of 1 trillion to work on about 100 kilometers of roads in Kampala. Now, these Kampala roads, like now this year, the one in front of us, A Street, they are 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, like that. So when you talk about 100 kilometers,
be a lot. Yeah, to be a lot.
So I remember listening to him here, hosted by Kwezi, and they said when they did estimates and advertised, and then they said they saved 280 billion. And how? Kwezi asked him, how did the saving take place? Then he said, their estimates were high. For instance, saying this road would cost, say, 3 billion. Now the contractors, the bidders, they bidded less, and then they realized they had more money at their hands. So that's why they saved the 280. I said, now, when are you putting the 280 also back to construct other roads?
Where did this, first of all, 1 trillion, what did it do?
You see, when you see now, like now here is street, the construction, that's part of the roads being constructed. Now, when they eventually gave out the tenders, there has been slowness in. I remember one time one of the shows in one of the radio, the outgoing ED mentioned that they were supposed to have started the construction in February, I think 2023. that it went on without to. When they started, then they were saying, "Oh, you the lines, the water lines, the sewer lines. We were trying to align." But why didn't you do that before? We are getting authority from
the utility lines,
from utility bodies to ensure that we are working together. Those are the things. By the time you went to advertise the roads and so forth, usually you have done it. So, but now somebody will say, "Oh, you have no money. Oh, this 7th Street, they are part of the roads to be worked on. The money is there." So, for me, we now need a new team which will take advantage of this. So people should know that the roads in this state, not because there's a lack of money, like we've been saying.
Two ministers for Kampala, they're supposed to do political oversight.
You see,
what have they been doing?
You see, the civil servants, well, you can one day invite them here and they talk for themselves, but the civil servants would say, "You minister, you're not supposed to inquire in the tendering process, in those processes, because they don't sign contracts, they don't sign money, they don't pay. You just brief you, we are working on this."
And what do they do then? What do they do then, Moses?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. But the point I'm raising here is that, yes, there was, I think, you can take your point to say, okay, maybe you didn't appoint the right people for the right job. So the Kitezi, for me, is, by the way, when you look at the most important, okay, it's unfortunate people died. They shouldn't have died. Because even for Kitezi, that dumping site, whatever it is, that waste is a source of wealth. It can be, Kamari have been to my farm in Kayunga. We use cow dung as a waste, get gas out of it, and get biofertilizer, organic fertilizer. Now, if you go to Nakesa farm, is a narrow farm here in after Kabanyoro, Bugema area, from about 200 or so animals, so the waste they get from the animals is taken into a biodigester, get out the gas, make electricity from that gas. They told me, last time I was there, they used to pay 6 million to Meme for power every month. But now they use their own electricity, and they can even sell to the neighbors if they wanted. So, and other things. So, to me, if we wouldn't have reached a level of a dumping site killing people, because this would have been an investment where people are making electricity out of it, are making organic fertilizer out of it. It's an agricultural country, and so on and so forth. So, the team which should come should be able to think business, to think ahead. How can we take and make advantage of this? So the roads must be completed because the money is there. And even this budget, if you recall, Minister Matia Kasaija mentioned that they have gotten money for what they call Greater Kampala area, working on the roads, more roads in Kampala and around Wakiso area. So we should do in the next 1 or 2 years have really a clean city with clean roads.
Okay, Mr. Moses Biaranga and Mr. Godfrey Mushabe, gentlemen, we're going to take a quick mega milk break and the hot seat will be right back.
KFM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the hot seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest this evening, I have Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Biaranga. I have from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Godfrey Mushabe.
And strategic studies include the waste management?
But by the way, one of these days you should tell us about strategic studies. They include security, regime survival, security.
You could have given advice. Maybe that's part of waste management.
Okay, Moses. But okay. The president has fired 3 individuals, and of course we're going to see another team coming. But do you think the new team that will come will actually be able to do anything better? What are the hindrances they're likely to face?
I just don't think that they can do anything better. Well, first of all, if you listen to Moses, what Moses is doing is, I say, that's explaining a problem. That's what he's doing. He's not offering the solutions as government. So he's explaining the problem. I mean, there is a reason why we have Chitezi burying people, because sometimes Moses' people...
It was a tomb waiting to swallow, after all.
Sometimes one of the problems with the Moses' people, this NRM regime, they normally talk as if they have arrived yesterday. They forget that they have been around for now close to 40 years. So when it happens, it's like, oh no, we have borrowed money from the World Bank, we're going to sort out the garbage. But you've been here for 40 years. Then you say the roads have corrupted. He says, oh, there is a World Bank loan to fix the roads. But 40 years. So sometimes I really... these guys have to be... I think they have to count themselves lucky that Ugandans are so gullible that they accept all these explanations. Yes, secondly, I went to Jakarta sometime back. Jakarta is the capital city of Indonesia. This is a capital city, I think, as of now, they have an estimated population of 11 million people. So I think the time when I visited, they were saying there were about 9 million people. So I was struck by the cleanliness, the neatness of Jakarta city. So I asked colleagues around, I said, but how are you able to keep a city like this one clean as big as Jakarta? So one of the guys told me a story and said, Jakarta used to be one of the dirtiest towns around the world.
So we can redeem ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And he told me that the only thing that was done to clean up Jakarta was that the president, I think that was that must have been Suharto at that time, basically said, we want a clean capital city. So he agreed with the mayor of Jakarta and said, I'll give you everything you need to clean up this city. And every beginning of the month, we will be meeting to discuss what is the next course of action over this month. So in other words, the president of Indonesia invested in making sure that Indonesia has a clean city, because this is a capital city. So, normally what happens is in other words, the mayor had a standing invitation to go to State House every beginning of the month. So if you are a mayor and you're going to meet the head of state, there are certain things you must do to be able to go and report. So apparently within a course of 1 year, Jakarta was simply transformed. So in other words, President Museveni, for Kampala, because this is our capital city, because Kampala is an embarrassment to each one of us who are Ugandans. And I think it's more of an embarrassment to President himself, the man who has been claiming he's transforming the country and transforming the continent. Because ordinarily, if we had a system that work, a president of Uganda with this capital city should not be allowed to speak at any international meeting because you have nothing to say. So if I was in Moses' shoes, I would say, Mr. President, you have to take charge of the capital city. Whatever, even if you bring the new team, I think that the formula of having monthly meetings to work on this city would be a good idea. You meet, this team must be coming every month and say, this is the plan, and to be able to transform Kampala. Because I keep on asking myself, if you have 2 ministers, we pay them every other month, we look after them, we buy them vehicles, we pay for their security. When they sit in the cabinet, what do they say? What do they talk about Kampala? So there is total incompetence and dysfunction that Kampala is just a victim rather than just an isolated problem.
Let me pick out something that the former ED wrote on when he was resigning. Jennifer Musisi submitted her 21-page resignation note to President Yoweri Museveni, and she was saying when she was going to step down, and these are the things she saw. One of the challenges was to reconcile the competing interests between political perspectives, decisions, and strategic plans of the KCCA technical team. Consequently, she says it has increasingly become difficult to achieve set targets. She equally pointed out the inadequate political support to the effort of the KCCA technical team to transform Kampala, a result of which many planned city improvement plans have not received political support. And yet, this the woman would say, probably tried to leave a legacy of something running better. Lack of political support, constant bickering at KCCA, those were the issues she pointed out. They could have been looked into.
Political support she didn't explain, but definitely not at the highest level, because she had all the political support from the president. I imagine the wars she had with Lukwago, because Lukwago is a politician. So I imagine by lack of political support, she meant the council she was working with, because of the politician.
She also pointed out inadequate funding, by the way.
Well, but let me come to that. But for political support, it's not the president. The president gave her a lot of support. But you remember their quarrels with Kwago, and each one under the law has their own role to play. So they never agreed on what to do. They spent a lot of time quarreling. So that's maybe the one she was referring to. But with Godba raised issues about the cleanness of cities, fine. Yes, you can learn from other areas. If Jakarta was that is state, now it is clean. One can learn from them. But also with the residents of Kampala, we also have a big role to play. And I don't know whether we need also political support. I don't know, because like we were talking, Musisi made some paveways, some this and this, some planting some greenery around the city, in between roads. But you find our people standing on them. The border person riding on the pavements and so forth.
There was also some kind of behavior change in how attitudes were changing in Kampala.
Yeah, just to say that now it is now the individuals first. Because the residents must also be who throws that garbage. You see the garbage around the city. It is the residents. It's not KCC which throws it out. So people, and that was not only in the city but along our roads. I hate it when I see I'm driving behind someone, then you see them throw a big car like the ones the Godbas drive.
You are crazy, Moses.
You see somebody throwing out
for the benefit of the audience.
Or something.
Moses drives a bigger car than mine.
No.
But you guys, stop talking about your big cars. No. We have bigger things to continue.
Listen, so you see somebody.
Yeah, but anyway, he's making a good point.
See somebody throwing out a Kavera. Someone throwing out a water bottle. There's a time I was doing behind someone. Then I even went and came close and said, "What are you doing? Why can't you keep it in your car? Reach a place where you can dispose them off." So we also, yes, we can learn from other cities, like God by saying, but also the resident, the technical and political, yes, can do better. There's definitely more work to do better, but also we, the residents of Kampala, have more work to do in terms of minding our own city, about our own city, being mindful of what we throw out, make sure that, because at least there are a lot of dustbins I've been seeing in some of the areas. But if they're empty and people just throw things on the side, you wouldn't say, I wouldn't blame the current leadership which is leaving that they have not tried to put dustbins around. In some cases you see them, but outside, just below the dustbin, the dust is outside. So we need to do better as residents and know that this is our city. It is not for politicians, it's not for anybody, it is for the residents. And these are sources of a lot of sicknesses. When the city is dirty, if you, a public health person like the one who has been fired will tell you the dangers you will get from that dirtiness. So I remember some of the few things which could be in 2010. Yes, maybe I can mention this after.
Yes, gentlemen, Mr. Moses Biaranga and Mr. Godba Mushabe, we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's look into the current situation now. The garbage crisis in Kampala, they're turning into big mountains, heaps and heaps of garbage in every division. We're getting to October, which is a wet month. In other words, we are facing a catastrophe. We are on the brink of facing a health crisis in Kampala if the garbage issue is not solved. We're going to take a break.
I'll finish that.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest this evening are Mr. Moses Biaranga, Senior Presidential Advisor, and from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Godba Mushabe. Godba, we are facing a problem of garbage. As we speak right now, the heaps are turning into mountains in different...
Before you go to garbage, I'm supposed to be completing something. Sometime around 2010, the leadership at KCC is not the one which was this one we're talking about. Here, just in Kibuye, I used to see a lot of water in jerry cans on wheelbarrows. So I asked some people, said, but this water is for what? He said, no, they sell it to those slum areas where they don't have direct clean water. I said, at how much? 200 shillings. A jerry can. I asked then Dr. Muhairwe, who was the MD of National Water, said, me who has water in my house, how much do I buy it? He said 15 shillings. So he said, but these poor people are buying water so expensive. Anyway, to cut the long story short, I told him, but we can take water to these slum areas and involve the people to dig trenches and so on and so forth. We get somebody within that area to run the water kiosk and do it. So by the time we finished the project, we had this spread around 3,500 taps around Kampala. And since then, 2010, you have never heard of cholera in Kampala. But before that, there will be a budget of cholera issues in Kampala because the people are drinking dirty water. So some of these things take initiative to solve problems facing your city. Now, it could go. I could go on and on, but the point is, you just need a leadership who looks and identifies the problems and looks for solutions of how to handle those problems.
Yeah, okay. Well, at least you saw something and you stepped in and then it worked. You found an executive director of a government entity who was willing to listen and maybe, and then something happened. But now we have people whose job it is to manage the city and they can't. We have heaps of garbage turning into mountains in different divisions. We're getting into a month of October. It's a rainy month, and that could be a recipe for disaster. I remember the other time in Haiti that there was a cholera outbreak, and even the people were protesting, thinking that the UN had brought them cholera. It really gave them a headache. But now we are standing on the brink of a cholera epidemic in Kampala, aren't we?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not new. It's not like all of a sudden things have become that there's a new problem. Because you see, normally when you fail to manage your situation, you don't properly manage, everything becomes an emergency. So what you are describing, you're describing it as if it is new. But Kampala has been degenerating over and over again. The road network has been collapsing. Every time you move away from the main roads and you go into the neighborhoods, that's a nightmare. And so I guess the point I want to return to my last point and to my first point to say Kampala is a victim of the dysfunction of this government. Until you see the government beginning to do things in a more deliberate way, in a more definitive way, you are not going to see a change. Because you have to see from small things. If a government cannot manage traffic, you cannot manage these road borders on the roads, you cannot manage the road motorists, you don't have capacity to build a road. So for me, it's like it's manifest of the incapacity of the government to manage public affairs. So I mean, at the end of the day, you need a government, you need a leadership that has a vision of how a country should look like. If you are a regime like the NRM, you are a president like Museveni, and I think you must have a vision of what a capital city would look like. So if after 40 years, your capital city looks like the way it is now, I am not confident that you have the disposition and the vision and later on the courage to be able to do things differently. So even with the new team, I would want to bet because Musisi tried. I think you could see visible progress. I don't think that the have obstacles were just Lukwago. I think the obstacles were more than Lukwago because KCCA is a paper tiger because of the law that was enacted, and the law was enacted. The constitutional amendment to move Kampala under central government was basically to create that institutional architecture that the central government comes in to manage the capital city, which they have failed to do.
Moses, when you're away, and maybe Godby talked about something that we all know. You know, when you look at the anarchy that is in Kampala, if you go downtown and see how people are driving on the road, how they defy traffic regulations. If you go to City Clock Tower, You'll find borders driving in hundreds, driving the wrong way with the policeman there. And sometimes the policeman has the audacity to stop a car. The other day he stopped me, and then he was not even talking about the police.
They have made this thing of driving on the wrong lane. They have made it a standard practice.
So the thing is, if government or the city managers cannot just solve those small things, how can we be sure that they're going to tackle the big things?
Those are not small; they're big. What you call small?
You find
so what is bigger? What is bigger?
A person like you driving a UC in most of your colleagues decide to drive on the wrong side, and then now they are putting their sirens, they are putting these flickering lights on the grill. They are pushing us on the side. So it's
like real villagers. Anyway, villagers. I'm sorry, that sounds abusive to villagers, but I think these guys they have the.
Let me give you an example. Today there was a guy who was riding a border. So he came with his flickering light. It is very sharp behind me, and it is confusing me. So I put down my mirrors, and then I stopped him. I said, "What you're doing is not right. Why are you putting that light? He's flickering it. First of all, it's but the man was listening up and said, "I'm sorry. I understand." Then he switched it off and continued.
Earlier, Patrick, I mentioned the morality and the responsibility of the city residents. I don't know why the Kampala, you see, you're mentioning that case. For you, you know what to do and you do it. I don't know the best way of law to abide with by the law is not because of the enforcer, it's you to believe. I don't want to be stopped from killing a person because the law is saying don't kill a person or there's a police person, but I know killing a person is wrong. So what you were mentioned about not following traffic rules and rights and so forth, the people in Penkoni driving on the wrong lane, that is indiscipline of the residents. Yes, the city can try their best, working with other agencies like police to instill and enforce discipline, but it all starts with you, Kamara, behaving the right way. If I mentioned who is throwing out the garbage from their cars on the street. Yes, you can have a very deterrent law when you are caught. Maybe you are charged, you are fined so much money so that it's a deterrent. But why should a whole Kamara drink a bottle of mineral water, finish it and throw it out of the window? So partly, yes, the state authorities have work to do, but also the residents have the responsibility of discipline, of knowing this is not right. I don't have to do it. I don't have to wait for an enforcer to stop me from.
But I thought continuous, effective enforcement of the laws can create a discipline from the people and can create values after some time.
It's both ways. I said you have given yourself a good example. Somebody was riding behind you with those flickering lights, and when you talked to him, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you don't drive or ride on the wrong lane." But others do it. So those who do it, why should they do it? It's not about that there's no somebody to enforce. Yes, there should be somebody to enforce. But even if somebody come to enforce that you're on the wrong lane, why should you be on the wrong lane? I know majority of people in this city drive rightly, including myself. But there are those who do the wrong side, the wrong thing. So yes, I agree. There must be an enforcer. But I also want to put it to the listeners who are listening that we, the residents of the Kampala city and the surroundings, we have
a case for Clock Tower.
We have a responsibility.
The police is willing, but they have been overwhelmed by the wrongdoers. They have nothing to do. This is where we've reached. Because they stopped them, they said, "What can we do?"
That's what I'm saying. You are agreeing with me. You are agreeing with me that the indiscipline of us, the residents in the city, not us meaning the people in the city, are not part of that indiscipline, but it is that indiscipline which we must curb. First of all, starting with the individuals. Yes, the enforcer should be the enforcement. I have no problem with that. Whoever comes at KCCA should try to do that enforcement, but as I was saying, they get overwhelmed sometimes by the people doing the wrong thing.
Patrick, I don't know why Moses is blaming citizens.
Yes.
Because you see, you can have a government, a regime that creates lawlessness as a management measure. I think that the NRM regime, I think it may even be intentional, Because you see, the level of lawlessness is simply unmatched anywhere, in my view. Because almost everybody, I have said time and again that almost everybody, right now, from the president to the smallest person in anywhere, spends more time and resources and money to breaking the law than to comply. And you can see it across the board, whether it's a regular this one-based driving the cars, as we are saying. I have said time and again that you have people who are invading wetlands and forests, and the president sometimes comes out and says, "No, these are my voters. You don't touch them." No, you see what Museveni says. You remember, Museveni came to Ntungamo. There is a wetland. There was a forest reserve in Ntungamo town. People just invaded it and cut it. I told them the name of people. They all kept quiet. They couldn't do anything. President Museveni came to Chamate there in his church and said, "I want that wetland restored." Everybody ignored him. And now, I don't understand how a president can give a directive and everybody ignores. Let me finish my point, Moses. Secondly, if you want to see the epitomization of lawlessness, you have to look at Museveni's son, who is the chief of defense forces, a 4-star general, who goes blatantly violating the constitution openly. The UPDF
with the cheerleaders.
With cheerleaders, exactly. The UPDF can't do anything. The president, who is the commander-in-chief, can't do anything. And the other day, the deputy speaker, my brother Thomas Tayebwa, basically told MPs and said, "No, the UPDF has a code of conduct, it will deal with that." And I'm telling you, I said, you, the deputy speaker or the speaker, you are the custodian of Uganda's constitution, and you're saying someone who breaks a constitution, who violates the constitution, has to be dealt with by a code of conduct. So that is the level of lawlessness that this regime has created, and basically we are suffering from that breakdown.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a milk break. Welcome back, gentlemen. Welcome back. You know, the issue of lawlessness, Godba has tried to explain it the way how he sees it. Moses, that lawlessness, what are we going to do about it?
Just too much.
You know, I gave you an example of clock tower. Yeah. You know, the police is overwhelmed by people who are breaking the law. I have stopped to ask the policemen twice. And they have told me, "Kamara, what can we do? Look at them. They're just too many." They have given up, as if there's no government.
The road has been, that area,
just overwhelming.
The road from Zambia side, the road has been, that area was redone, as you know, looks very beautiful. But as you are saying, at one moment when the people have stopped, you have like 1,000 borders going the other side and coming to the other side. And to many other points.
And riding in the wrong direction with the police is looking on.
Even Ginger Road.
But see, you have 2, 3, 4 policemen and there are 1,000 borders. They can't arrest all of them if they wanted. So for me, the border issue, the overall solution is getting public buses within the city. There was a program around that. I don't have the latest. I remember there was even money for under KCCA.
The way you've said there was money for road.
No, the money, yes, there was money. I remember sometime like 2 years, $22 million for such public.
So you need to tell us who ate that one now.
Public bus system. I need to find out
who ate that one now.
But anyway, that one I don't have the facts. But the point I'm raising is that the border challenge can be addressed through public bus system, transport system. Then that one, the border will be phased out economically on their own through the public bus system. And the government had provided money. I don't know how it ended up. Somewhere they would maybe at some time explain. That's the way to bring that to bring now.
You are the government. You have to explain that.
Yeah, but I didn't have the fact. But the fact I have that the money was there. It was not used. But also, when you look at when you talk about accountability, Parliament passes those budgets. Now, when you're going to pass in the next budget, you ask that question. There was money for public bus transport system. What happened? Did it go back to the Treasury? Was it used or was it not utilized? I agree that we need to curb the lawlessness in Kampala, partly by the administrators, strong administration. So whoever is going to come to KCCA, they have a very big role to play. But also, with the residents, we have our responsibility to play to ensure that we don't do the wrong things. Those people who drive vehicles in the wrong side, blah, 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 they're a menace to our society. But the police, sometimes, it's true, sometimes gets overwhelmed because of the numbers of those border people when they are doing the wrong thing. They try, like here around Kitugum House, when I'm stopping along the traffic lights, you see them coming and, taking over the key from the struggling with the border person, take over the key of the motorcycle, but you cannot arrest one when 10 are passing by because there are so many of them. So the solution is public bus transport system, which we can work on as a country, as a government. I don't think we can fail to do it if we put effort in doing it.
You know, I've also seen corporate Ugandans or somebody working in security. They will have sometimes they disrespect our men in uniform, especially the traffic officers. I know you have. I'm sure you have heard of something called Gambanugu. Again, that shows you the degree of impunity.
So Moses, let's try this one. I just want to offer some small solution. Let's offer. In fact, whether you have appointed a new team or before you appoint, let's get the Commissioner General of URA. We get the Director General of URSB. We get the head of passport control, and the head of the driver's licensing system. Because for now, as of now, those are some of the few institutions of government that you feel like they are open, they are functioning they are functioning in a very dysfunctional system. So we get them, so we get them into a room and say, how are you able to do this? Because if you think of where URSB came from, or the driver's licensing system, where they came from, the suffering that Ugandans were subjected to.
Part of it.
So we can say, what have you done to keep afloat in terms of functioning in a fairly dysfunctional system? What is it that you can learn from them?
Part of it, what I know, is I have argued that here before, investment in technology. Take a look at the passport system. At first, you will go to the LC1 to sign for you. From LC1, you go to the district to the RDC. From the RDC, you come to passport office. Then you look which officer you will handle the papers to, and then you start. But now you go online, fill the form, finish all the requirements, pay, either in the bank or pay by, if you have a Visa card, you pay. The system gives you a date to appear for biometrics. You go and do it, and then the next thing you have a passport. So the same thing with the license. Everything is online.
No, even URSB, everything has gone online. You rarely interact with the human beings.
I have argued with you here before that one of the ways of fighting corruption in this country is technology. I told you that sometime I think I was in the UK, I was doing a taxi, then the driver was driving on a highway. The driver was maintaining a speed. I said, how come you maintain that speed for a long, and the road is clear, there are no traffic? He said, if I went beyond the 70 kilometers per hour, the cameras will get me. So you see how technology even brings discipline. Now, here we have the camera. You're talking about those borders. Although you wanted to arrest them, but you have their biometrics followed, who is so and so and so. So investment in technology can also help. So the guys you're talking about,
I think
where you're seeing efficiency, the areas you're mentioning.
We are not disagreed, Moses. We are not disagreed on that. All I want is to hear from you as the president's man. Because you see, when Jen from CC was here, she had tried to make progress.
She did.
And you could feel like the complaints, the anxieties and the frustrations of Kampala's dwellers were beginning to go down. So when you hear the cries of Kampalans now, it's not because that the government is not doing anything. It's actually because things are going down the drain. So what you need to do as the president's man,
you need to get a good leadership.
That's also your conclusion.
What we need to do as the president's man is to assure Ugandans and Kampalan residents and say, in the next 6 months, 1 year, we're going to see things going positive. not going down the way they have been doing.
All right. Moses, as you respond, what's your concluding remark?
Concluding remark and respond to that is that yes, I agree, we need a good leadership which is focused at both technical, like ED, deputy ED, and even the other directors, and also the political level in terms of the council, the councillors, the road mayor. Because in all this, you don't hear the road mayor being mentioned, but what is the role of the road mayor in Kampala? What does he do? Then you under the ministers for Kampala. We need a team which is focused.
You need the ministers?
No. Now that we have them within the system,
now we have the mayor. We need him.
We need him because I don't hear the mayor doing anything.
Do the ministers do anything?
Not saying anything.
Do the ministers do anything?
At least sometimes I hear them on radio. But the point I'm making, both the politicians, that is the ministers for Kampala, and the other politicians like the road mayor and the council must also be focused.
Okay.
Then the technical team, which comes out, because you don't want also a good person like when we had Musisi fighting with Lukwago the time instead of concentrating on managing.
Okay, our time is done. Good, but very briefly, a parting shot.
For me, all I want is what I want now. The crisis of Kampala now is my president, probably on a monthly basis, getting whoever is the ED and the road mayor and meeting together and say, how do we fix Kampala?
All right.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for the time, for your submission. You, the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. And that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of the Hot Seat. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same station. Good night and God bless Uganda.